Class 1 Division 2 location is defined as an area where Class 1 signifies the presence of flammable gases or vapors in the air, present in sufficient quantities to create an explosive or ignitable mixture under normal operating conditions. Division 2 indicates that the hazardous atmosphere is not likely to exist under normal operating conditions. However, it is possible under abnormal conditions, such as through a spill or leak. Considering a diesel fuel generator, diesel fuel itself is a flammable liquid. However, it does not typically generate flammable vapors under standard operating procedures. It is still possible for a diesel fuel generator to have areas prone to leaks or spills. These incidents could lead to the presence of flammable vapors, warranting the classification of the generator enclosure as Class 1 Division 2. If the generator enclosure is classified as Class 1 Division 2, it's important to install conduit seal-offs at the proper distance from the enclosure. An 18-inch distance is generally required to prevent the migration of flammable vapors into the conduit system. Therefore, based on this information, it's plausible that a diesel fuel generator within an enclosure could be designated as Class 1 Division 2. If so, adhering to the 18-inch conduit seal-off distance is necessary. However, keep in mind a more thorough evaluation may be needed to accurately determine the appropriate classification and related requirements. Here are some additional details about hazardous locations and the NEC. Hazardous locations are areas where fire or explosion hazards may exist due to flammable gases, vapors, liquids, combustible dust, or ignitable fibers or flyings. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides guidelines for electrical installations in these locations to minimize the risk of ignition. The NEC classifies hazardous locations into classes, divisions, and groups, each representing a different type and degree of hazard. Class 1 locations involve flammable gases or vapors, Class 2 locations involve combustible dust, and Class 3 locations involve ignitable fibers or flyings. Divisions indicate the likelihood of the hazardous material being present. Division 1 indicates that the hazardous material is normally present or may be frequently present, while Division 2 indicates that the hazardous material is not normally present but may be present under abnormal conditions. Groups classify the specific type of hazardous material present, further defining the required protection methods. Electrical equipment installed in hazardous locations must be specifically designed and certified for the class, division, and group of the location. This equipment is designed to prevent ignition of the hazardous material, either by containing any potential sparks or explosions within the enclosure or by limiting the surface temperature of the equipment to below the ignition temperature of the hazardous material. Conduit seal-offs are used to prevent the passage of gases, vapors, or flames through electrical conduit systems in hazardous locations. They are typically installed at the boundaries of hazardous locations and at specific intervals within the conduit system. The NEC specifies the requirements for conduit seal-offs, including their location, type, and installation methods. The 18-inch distance requirement for conduit seal-offs in Class 1 Division 2 locations is intended to provide an additional level of safety by preventing the spread of flammable vapors. This distance ensures that any potential ignition source within the conduit system is far enough away from the hazardous atmosphere to prevent ignition. When evaluating a diesel generator enclosure for hazardous location classification, several factors should be considered, including the type of fuel used, the ventilation of the enclosure, the presence of any potential ignition sources, and the frequency and duration of any potential leaks or spills. A qualified electrical inspector or engineer should perform a thorough assessment of the enclosure to determine the appropriate classification and requirements. The NEC provides detailed information on hazardous location classifications, equipment requirements, and installation methods. It is essential to consult the NEC and other relevant standards when designing and installing electrical systems in hazardous locations. Properly classifying hazardous locations and implementing appropriate safety measures are crucial for protecting people and property from the risk of fire and explosion. In summary, classifying a diesel generator enclosure as Class 1 Division 2 depends on the potential for flammable vapors to be present. If classified as such, the 18-inch conduit seal-off distance is a critical safety measure. However, A comprehensive assessment is always recommended for accurate classification.